Good morning, Central Texas. Welcome to Kids Community Connections. I'm Phyllis Jones, your host for this morning, and I have a lovely guest, but we're going to talk first. You know, we got to talk first before I introduce the guest, because you can't do it after, you're supposed to do it beforehand, so let's talk about it. You know, every year before the presidential election, it seems, whenever the presidential election is coming, and this word called reparations comes up. And then, you know, everybody jumps on the bandwagon of saying that African Americans deserve reparations. But the truth of the matter is, if they did say today that African Americans would get reparations, who can actually prove that that their ancestors were slaves? How many of us can actually go back right now today, pick up a piece of paper and go, here, my ancestors were slaves? Guess what? Not many of us could. According to the federal government, you are what your father is. According to the government standards, that determines your nationality. So I'll say for myself, that blew me out the water because my dad was not born in the United States. So that killed my reparations. Although that just knocked me out the whole thing because he wasn't born in the United States. He wasn't. So that would make him never was a slave, because where he's from, that area, they weren't slaves. So that would knock me out of the whole reparations pool. Kid caboodle, the whole 9 yards right then and there, because he was not. So, you know, as we fight for this, claiming we want this 40 acres and a mule, we need to go back and think about it, get out of the hype part, and actually sit back and see, can you actually prove that your ancestors were slaves? We know our ancestors were Africans, but we don't know whether they were all slaves. And, you know, you would be surprised that some people who don't look like us today might be ones who get reparations, because today, they might not look like us as far as skin tone, but when they check their ancestry, they might have been slaves. Their ancestors could have been, you know, and you would look and say, why are they getting it? It's because of, we know during the time of slavery, let's put it this way, males and females were raped by the slave oppressors, you know, which caused a mixture then, because your slave oppressor was not always white or Anglo, whatever you want to say. They weren't all that. So, and some of them were mixed at that time too. So you'd have a basket of a nightmare going on. So as everybody fights for this quote unquote reparations, you got to remember, you have to prove that your family was once slaves. And like I said, you remember the government standard is you are what your father is. Which when I say myself, so much for that ideal. You know, and a lot of other people will be like, well, so much for that, because that's what it was. So, you know, before you jump into this thing of I want my 40 acres and a mule, you might not be the one to get it. Yes, they did give it to Cherokee Nation, but you know what? Just think, they only gave it to the Cherokee Nation, and the only ones who they didn't give it to them individually. They gave it to the nation itself. But you know what? The Cherokee nations that weren't 100% Cherokee, they didn't get anything. Just think about it. They didn't get anything. So the Cherokees that were, you know, those of us who say I'm half Cherokee or whatever, to which we know most of us aren't. But anyway, you didn't get anything. Sorry, you got kicked out of the reparations issue. So I'm not saying that people don't deserve it, but while you're fighting for it, realize exactly what is going to have to happen. If you get it, you're going to have to prove something that you might not be able to prove. Thus, you're going to be sitting there looking like a complete nut because you were fighting for something that you can't have. You know, so before everybody's on this whole thing, oh, yes, we deserve it. They had, you know, people talked on Capitol Hill about it. You had these quote unquote actresses and actors who were testifying. Don't know why they didn't go find any scientists or professors, but they didn't. But, you know, everybody jumped on it. It was on social media. It's everywhere. Everybody wants it. But you got to remember, you have to prove who you are. And most of us can't do that. And like I said, if we look now at those of us who don't have our skin tone, they might actually ancestrally been slaves. Their ancestors might have been. They won't admit it maybe, but they would be able to get reparations just like you're asking for now. So you need to think about that and realize that everybody whose families and ancestors were slaves might not look like us now. If you look at, and we can't go by skin tone as far as, because as we know, as African Americans, we're so many different skin tones. until it's not funny. You know, you can find some of us that are, I'll say my mother. My mother was like a white woman with straight black hair. That's just what she looked like. Whole features, everything. That's what she looked like. But if you told her she wasn't an African American, she'd probably shoot you or something. But that's not my mother. Look, my dad, like I say, wasn't born here, so he was very dark skinned. And then here I'm in the middle of I'm in the middle of both of them, somewhere in there, which wouldn't help anybody either. And like I said, we also got to remember we have people who don't look us at all, no olive skin tone, and they could have been slaves. So as we fight about something, and I always talk to you about it too, you know, whenever we're fighting for something, then make sure you know the history of what you're fighting for. Make sure that you got it all correct in your head. Don't fight for something that you can't get. Don't fight for something that you're going to assume that's going to be given to everybody. Because just think, if they pass it today, you're going to walk in there with a sheet of paper and say, what? That I am? What proof are you going to have? Most likely, none. If you did your ancestry, you're going to come back with this 30% of this, 20% of that, 60% of this, but you're not going to come back with 100% of anything. You're just not unless you were born in another country. I'll just say if your mother and father were born in Africa, yeah, you're going to come back 100% African. Bam, that's it for you, unless you were born in Liberia. Because you got to remember, Liberia is part of the United States. People who live in Liberia are United States citizens. Regardless of what everybody thinks, they are United States citizens. And if you check how Liberia was formed, you'll know that. But just think, they're United States citizens. Some of their ancestors were slaves because that's why they were taken to Liberia, and that's how Liberia was formed. So, like I said, we must remember the history of who we are as a people. And when you're fighting for something such as this reparations issue, think about actually what it's saying. Think about actually who would get something. Just think about it. Don't stand up and say, I want this, because you might not be the one to, I'm not going to say deserve it, but you might not be the one in the line to get it. Because once again, you're going to have to prove it. Once again, just because I look like this doesn't mean I am. It doesn't mean anything. This is the only thing this means. This is how I ended up looking. This is how I ended up this way. I could tell you how I ended up this way through my mother and father, grandfather, but other than that, I couldn't tell you how I ended up this way. Like I told you, my mother, she looks like she was a white woman with long black hair, straight black hair that didn't curl, nothing, just bam, just there. Okay, so you're going to tell me she was what? Really? Don't think so. I'm sitting here with Joe here, and, you know, he's Sicilian and a bunch of other heritages behind him. So who knows what color Joe was with his ancestors. You know, he might be in that line for his reparations. We don't know. And you'd be looking at him like, why are you in this line? He got a piece of paper that says, I'm 100%, or, you know, my father was. So we need to look out to what we're talking about and think about what you're asking. Don't ask for something that's a pie in the sky that you simply think that you get because right now, today, you're identifying yourself as an African American or an African, or some of us will say I'm an African that happened to have been born in America. So just think about all that as we fight for our reparations. And am I in that fight? No, I just got kicked out of it real fast. but check him, and I didn't check my ancestry. I just know where my father was from. That blew the heck out of that. So, like I said, when you're in a fight for something, first of all, study it. Don't jump on the bandwagon because you look like this today. Don't jump up and say you want something that you might not be entitled to. So before you jump into a battle, know about it, understand it, find out the background from it, and see who it actually benefits. Because like I said, most of us, we won't get anything. You wouldn't. If they were to pass it yes today and decide who would get what, you'd be standing there with your hand out only to get your hand shake and no money in it. So like I'm saying again, know what you're fighting for. And don't jump on something that you don't understand or you think you know. Actually dig in and find out. Okay, we have a holiday coming up, you know, and every year I beat up this holiday, and I beat it up because I'm a history freak. I really am. I do things according to history. Why? Because history's there and it's there. This holiday coming up is called 4th of July, and we're celebrating America's independence. I hate to tell you, but if you're somebody of color, your people were still in the fields. Your people were still slaves during America's independence. If you look at the year, which is 1776, you will notice that it's, it took us a couple of more years before we were no longer slaves. So you're celebrating America's independence, but you weren't free. So just think about what you're celebrating. Are you celebrating the fact that you were still slaves? Or are you celebrating America's independence because simply you were born here? What are you actually celebrating? Just asking a question. Just saying, just remember, while America was celebrating independence and party and stuff like that, your ancestors, because remember, you're going to reparations, so your ancestors were still in the fields. I'm just saying, your ancestors were still in the fields. So as you celebrate America's independence, remember yours wasn't. You didn't have an independence at that time. You were still slaves. Now, I'm not saying don't celebrate it. I'm not. Just know when you celebrate something. I'm still in that. If I celebrate something, I need to know why I'm celebrating it. I'm not going to celebrate just because it's cool to do. And was I raised this way? Yes. Yes, I was. I was raised in a dual household. My mother wanted us to celebrate 4th of July because everybody else did. My dad said no. So, it's kind of warm in there on some of these holidays. But just know what you're celebrating and why you're celebrating it. And don't just do it because it's a day to drink. And it's a day to barbecue. And a day to shoot off fireworks. It is a day that you do that. But understand, I say the history of why you're doing things. Because too many times we do things simply because. If I stop somebody on the street and ask them why they're going to celebrate 4th of July, they're going to tell me America's independence, right? And I'm going to let you know you weren't, your people weren't independent or nothing. Or they're just going to say because everybody else does. And that's fine. I'm not saying your ideal is wrong or right, but just know why you celebrate and when you celebrate 4th of July and any holiday. And, every year we talk about it. There is a part of 4th of July that does belong to African Americans, and we don't know about it. And usually I have them on the show. I'm due to have them on again. But anyway, most of us know about the Nation of Islam, whether you like it or not. The nation's here. But the Nation of Islam's birth is July 4th, 1929, was the birth of Nation of Islam in Detroit, Michigan. And they formed to be a shield for African Americans. That was it. Yes, they have their own beliefs and their own thoughts and their own process, but their number one thing was they formed to be a shield for African Americans. So that's their day, the 4th of July. So that's a day that they do celebrate, and most people who are from the Nation of Islam do celebrate that day because that's the birth of the nation. So if you want to celebrate the birthday, I guess you can slide over and say I'm doing the 4th of July for that. But just know why you celebrate and what you celebrate. And when you jump up about reparations, make sure you actually study it and read it and not jump on the bandwagon because everybody else says it's cool. Just be careful of those things because we get twisted up in there and you don't know which direction. You get upset and you get mad because they voted for you not to have it. Okay, if they voted for you to have it, are you going to get it? Most likely, like I said, no. So let's be thoughtful and mindful when we do things and when we get into issues like this. Just make sure that we can actually, we actually know what we're talking about. Okay, now for my guess. We talk about violence a lot because lately, I'm not going to say lately our society is more violent, and I don't think it's more violent. I think that since we have social media, we're able to find out faster. And we're able to find out what happens in Philadelphia. Whatever happened in Philadelphia 20 minutes ago, 21 minutes, in 21 minutes it's on social media and I can find out what happened. If something happens in Florida, social media, I can find out sometime as it's happening because we have those things called cell phones and we go live and it's right there in your living room. So I'm not going to say things are more violent or less violent. What I'll say is through social media, we can now find out exactly what's going on, when, where, and how. Since we have social media, we're finding out that there's more violence than we thought. We found out that it's happening more, you used to be, before social media, you knew whatever happened in your little area, the paper told you, and you're like, oh my gosh, things are getting bad. And now oh my gosh, things are getting bad everywhere because, like I said, of social media. I'm not going to say that's bad for social media. It's actually good because you get to find out what's going on everywhere, and you need to see at what time it's an epidemic or is it just something that's going on. But there's a group that I met last year. I met Trish last year before she started, and she has No More Violence. And No More Violence is just that, where they talk about no more violence. And hopefully in the future it catches on to be no more violence. You know, we have too many senseless killings. In fact, most killings we have are senseless. They start out with something crazy and they end up ridiculous, and somebody gets shot or stabbed or whatever, but they get murdered and didn't have to go that way. I know, when I'm telling my age now, when I was going to school, you fought on Fridays, and by the time Friday came, there was no fight because the teachers, the principal, heck, everybody knew you go outside to fight, and what the heck, everybody's going home because it's done. It is totally done. Nowadays, you have a fight, 10 seconds later, somebody's going to be shooting. So we've that's bad to say we went another direction, but we kind of did. Well, thankfully, like I said, Trish and her group, they formed No More Violence. And every year, for 2 years straight, they have a No More Violence conference in a certain city. Last year, we had it in Killeen, and it was nice. It was good. The conference was engaging. The kids, I always engage a conference for youth by the youth, not by the adults, because this is not for them. So I don't expect to get engaging answers from them. But the kids, when kids walk out of a conference and they're talking to each other, you know they were engaged. And as the kids were, I didn't see the basketball game that Friday. I don't know, I was doing something else. Probably preparing for Saturday because I was a part of Saturday's event. But watching kids at the conference on Saturday, leaving the workshops and being engaged was very interesting because they were actually talking about the workshops that they had left. So I thought it was a positive thing. Like I said, because when you can engage your youth, you are doing a pretty good job, because the kids are hard to engage now. You know, they're engaging sometimes with their phone. But the No More Violence conference, the kids seem to be more engaged in what was talking about. So this year we have Ramona here, and she's going to talk more about No More Violence, which is going to be the 19th and the 20th of July, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's going to be, okay, now if you look at the flyer online says it's going to be at Westside Baptist Church, but it's actually going to be everything at the Killeen Community Center, correct?
There are a couple of events that are going to happen at the church this year. Okay. It's not everything. Everything was that's one of the differences that you were talking about. There'll be more things at the Killeen Convention Center, the Community Center.
Right. So can you tell us all about what's going to happen and what we're going to look forward to and how to register?
Yes, ma'am. You can, first of all, go on the No More Violence Facebook page, and there's one specifically for Killeen, and you can register there, or you can contact Miss Trish, and all of her information, is also on the Facebook page. Like Miss Phyllis was saying, the convention this year is on July 19th and 20th. The events start at the church on the 19th in the morning. There's going to be a meet and greet, and it's at 9 a.m. After that is something different also that's going on this year. It's going to be a youth-led panel, which is going to be very interesting. The youth are going to be talking about things that they've experienced and things maybe that they want to see. That is just so happen going to be moderated by my brother. It's coming from Tennessee. So that's going to be happening at 10. Also on the 19th is the basketball game, which the youth will be again playing members from KPD. That's going to be at the community center.
You know, they cheated last year at KPD.
I can almost believe
because
that.
all of those weren't officers. They cheated.
I can believe that. Good thing I'm going to be playing with the kids this year.
Okay, yeah, they cheated last year. I'm calling out the chief. Chief Charles Kimball. I just said his name by accident, or either Chuck Kimball, whatever, I didn't see him playing last year. I just want to say, and I will say Lieutenant Willie Bryant. Ooh, I didn't see him playing last year. I'm just going to throw names
Open
out
invitation.
there. Yeah, I didn't see them playing last year. I want to know.
What happened?
Yes, I want to know. Assistant Chief Margaret Young. Yes, I'm calling. I didn't see her playing last year. I'm just saying I'm just, calling names.
This is going to be interesting because I missed it last year.
Yeah,
so I'm looking forward to it.
I'm just saying I didn't see them out there playing. I'm just throwing their names out there in the public.
KPD, there you go. It's an open invitation. Anybody that's available. That's funny. After KPD has showed up to the basketball game on the 19th at 1:30, that evening there's going to be a night service that's going to be honoring families that have been affected by violence. That's always interesting and something good for youth to be a part of, because a lot of times youth probably feel like that it's not going to happen to them or they won't be involved in something like that. So that's going to be very informative as it was last year. On the 20th, there will be another workshop at 10 a.m. and something different again that I'm looking forward to. There's going to be, she's reserved a couple of umbrellas at the water park at Lance Park. So at 1:30, the kids will be able to go to that. And one thing specifically that I didn't mention is all of the events for the kids that weekend are free of charge. All you have to do is register. And if by chance you don't get a chance to register before the 19th, we will have registration that morning. So don't think that you're going to be out of pocket for anything besides transportation. This is an activity for the community that is free of charge. So there's little to no excuse for getting your youth out there that weekend.
What's the age groups?
Actually, one of the classes are for bullying, and those ages start from 6 to 7. So bring your kids out, and even if they're younger than that, and you can be there with them just to get the experience and see the other kids being involved and engaged. And like Miss Phyllis said, these kids that come out, they are very engaged, and we all know that it's hard to keep kids' attention. And this is something that, just from my experience last year, they definitely keep the kids involved. And it's basically ran by them. So the topics that are going to be discussed, the kids have chosen and things of that nature. Before I get off track, again,
That's
on
fine.
The 20th, on that Saturday, there's going to be another night service at 7 p.m. And then the kids are going to be going to the movies at 9:30 p.m. So it's a lot of things, not just sitting and talking, but also things just to get the kids out of the house, out from in front of their phones and the computers, and just getting involved and having fun with other kids and adults that are concerned with the community.
When they talk about bullying, the one part that sometimes they forget to tell the kids is that teachers are bullies. A lot of times when they talk about bullying, they only talk about peer-to-peer bullying. Mm-hmm. And I hope that whoever talks about bullying remembers that teachers are bullies. They just happen to kind of get away with it on a different...
It's a different level.
Yes,
ma'am.
Until you talk to your parents.
Yes.
You let your parent know. But parents need to know, and kids need to know, that your teacher can be a bully. And sometimes some kids, people will say they're being ridiculed. Well, it's the same thing as being bullied. You just use a play on words. And ridicule sounds even worse than being bullied. But I hope that that whoever does it covers the fact to let kids know that teachers can be bullying you, and that's not right either. Because when teachers bully a child, and I notice I work in a school, I work at an elementary campus. When teachers bully a child, the other kids will then bully that child too. Mm-hmm. That's an open door now. That you bullied this kid and you made this kid cry. Guess what? Let's do it. Also about bullying is elementary kids are the most vicious children you ever want to know. People say high school kids. I know elementary kids. They haven't developed
filter.
They haven't developed that mindset yet that this can make a child kill themselves. They haven't developed that yet. So their mind doesn't work that way. They don't have that sense yet. It's not built in. People need to realize it's not built in yet. It is not there. So their sense of bullying, as I did it today, and she was crying. That's it. That's all.
It's over from there. Yes.
Yeah, it's over with until tomorrow when I do it again. She's gonna cry some more. Well, to them, it's that I made you cry today. I'm gonna make you. When are you gonna stop crying? I mean, to them, it's when you're gonna stop crying. So they're gonna do it until you stop, not knowing that, like I said, certain kids commit suicide. Some kids come back and they shoot up the school.
Self-harm.
Yeah, so elementary kids don't know that because, like I said, that filter, it's not there. It is, and many times people say, yes, no, it's not there. It isn't. They don't get it. All they see is the fun of doing it. And also, we need to remember that some kids that bully are bullied at home.
Yes.
They're bullied at home. They're abused at home. So they take it out. Because adults do the same thing. You take a wife or either a woman who's bullied at home. She's going to come to wherever she's going and take it with her, and you're going to catch it. You are going to catch it.
Yes.
You're going to go, what's wrong with her? Does she have an issue? So you know what? You end up leaving her alone, and she's alone when actually she needed you to be with her. But it's hard for her to say she's being bullied. It's hard for you to even think about it because you're so busy thinking, I'm getting away from her because she is. I've got to leave her alone because she's crazy, when she actually could be crying out for help the wrong way, but it's going on. So bullying takes on a bunch of different levels, especially except for kids. So I hope that the person realizes that the basic thing about kids is that they need to know that teachers and principals bully children. Because do you want me to call your mother because you're acting like whoops? It might be a promise on that point, but to me it's a threat. Oh my gosh. But yeah, go ahead. Continue.
That's a good thing. You mentioned that. Just so happen I know the person that's giving the class on bullying, and that would be my brother also. So I would definitely make note to let him know that he gives the class in Memphis, also to little kids. But that's definitely a different take on it because it comes in all shapes and sizes and ages. There's definitely no lines when it comes to bullying.
No, it does. It doesn't have a limit.
Exactly.
It doesn't have a face. It has, and adults are bullied. You're bullied at work. Your boss will bully you, and it depends on who you are, whether you're going to deal with it, take it, or how you're going to internalize it. But it goes on in different places, and youth need to know they can be bullied at work when they have their little summer jobs. Oh yeah,
and people take advantage because they're young.
Yes.
They think they could just speak to them. And I had to educate my daughter on that when she first started working.
Yeah, so kids need to know it happens in all kind of different ways, not just the one way that they think of in school when the person sticks you with a pencil and you yell ouch and you're in trouble.
That's something to bring up. Even I'm just thinking to myself at the youth-led forum, kids learning how to assertively stand up for themselves and be direct without being disrespectful. Right. That I work with youth and having to tell them it's okay to say no. It's okay to not let somebody speak to you like that. Because a lot of kids think, well, I'm young, so if they're an adult or they're in a leadership or an authority position, that whatever they say goes. Right. And sometimes it's not the case.